they administered HMOs to adults who had, presented with symptoms, who said they had IBS, basically irritable
Mm.
bowel syndrome. And they gave them, I think it was 10 grams over the course of 4 weeks. And they overwhelmingly reported, a drastic reduction in every single symptom category.
Welcome to the Clean Body Podcast. I'm Lauren Kelly, a certified nutrition therapist and soon to be specialized holistic cancer coach with a certification in cancer biology from UC Berkeley. I am so grateful that you're here. This podcast introduces you to the souls and brains behind some of the cleanest food, beverage, and lifestyle products on the market. Because what you put on, in, and around your body matters. From cookies, bread, and mushroom superfoods, to adaptogenic lozenges, clean medicines, organic mattresses, and fluoride-free toothpastes, we'll explore how the brands came to be, how scientific studies drove decisions about ingredients and materials, and most importantly, how the products support all the physical and mental microscopic miracles that occur in your body every minute of every day. Thank you for being here. Let's get this started. Hey guys, welcome back to the Clean Body Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Kelly. If you're looking to improve your gut health, or you have irregular, unfavorable bowel movements, bloating, inflammation, gas, etc., then this episode is for you, my friends. I today am talking to Layer Origin, the only company in the United States that has a complete line of pure HMO products. That is human milk oligosaccharide products. Now, before you freak out, the products don't actually contain human milk, but you'll have to wait to hear the interview to learn what they do contain. I'll admit, I have been using the product for over a week, and TMI, but my poops have been great. I won't gross you out with the details, but everything is moving smoothly. Anyways, during this episode, we of course talk about gut health because that is the theme for this month for all of the episodes, but we also dive into the science of HMOs and how they benefit immune health, performance, gastrointestinal function, and compare to the other pre and probiotics on the market. It's truly fascinating stuff, and it's backed by mega people in the health industry, including Ben Greenfield of the Ben Greenfield podcast, Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who is a cell biologist and co-founder of Found My Fitness, and Joel Green, who is the author of The Immunity Code. There are lots of other doctors, registered dietitians, and experts within the industry who are backing HMOs. You can see that on Layer Origin's website at layerorigin.com. But this episode will introduce you to what HMOs are, why they are beneficial for your body, and you can decide if trying them feels right for you and your health journey. Joining me for this episode is Bo Berman. He is another co-founder and the director of performance marketing for Layer Origin Nutrition. He'll give you a whole overview of his background. So let's just get this started. If you like this episode, please rate, review, subscribe, share with a friend. All listeners of the Clean Body Podcast are being given 25% off any order at layerorigin.com. So if you listen to this and you want to try the product, go to layerorigin.com. At checkout, use CleanBody25 and you'll get that 25% off. Cool. Let's jump into it. Bo, welcome to the Clean Body Podcast. How are you today?
Hey, I'm great. Thanks for having me. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, I am pretty stoked about talking about Layer Origin and everything you have going on over there. It's a little complicated and super interesting, and very progressive. So I think we're going to try really hard to break this down for the average listener, because I was even listening to podcasts about it and I was like, whoa, this is some complicated
Yeah, it can
stuff.
for sure. Yeah, it can take some time to wrap your head around it, but I think the reward is that it's quite fascinating once you grasp it, and it's definitely sort of a cutting edge area of the field of gut health, and yeah, so I think there's a reward in there if people are patient.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gut health, I talk about probably every single episode, and it's what I am most passionate about. So, this is just taking the education and gut health one step further, which is really exciting. But before we get into Layer Origin, I would love for you to just explain your experience with health and wellness and how you have found yourself where you are today.
Absolutely. I have a bit of an atypical entry into the field in that I was originally a uh, on-air television news reporter and anchor for 11 years. Trained from college as a broadcast journalism major in Pennsylvania at Penn State University. I did minor in kinesiology, but that was kind of the extent of my actual background. And there were many times where I considered getting, becoming like an NASM certified trainer, but have not done that because I always enjoyed, running on a treadmill and strength training and things of that nature. And as I get older, realize how important flexibility is and mobile hips and things like that. But yeah, so I was a journalist, and then circa 2019, I pivoted out of that into media relations, public relations, marketing, and took a job with a tech startup in Pittsburgh that was trying to market a really exciting product that leveraged artificial intelligence and machine learning and augmented reality, and it basically enabled
Mm.
kids to make cartoons on YouTube, which I actually thought was really cool. So I helped them gain a lot of publicity, and did a lot of email marketing and kind of leverage my name and face in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where was my latest had been my latest stop as a TV reporter and anchor. Um, and then I moved to New York with my wife, and she was starting as a professor at Cornell University. And so, through chance and circumstance, is that how you say that? I
Mhm.
met the original founders of Layer Origin Nutrition, who were two food scientists, and they were in search, actually, of somebody who would take over all aspects of marketing, communications, public relations, kind of being the face of the company, as their experience lied purely in the science aspect of it and running the business, but not really anything else. So it was a perfect fit. And I had an innate interest in health and nutrition. And I'm an avid supplement taker. Someone who is very interested in, what the best supplements to take are, which ones are bullshit, which ones you need, which ones you don't need,
Mm.
which are the best brands. And so, it was a really good fit in that sense. And so that's when I, joined the team in early 2020. And really, that's when we first started selling products online. There had been a couple years of ramp up before I joined the company, of research and development, obtaining patents, and trademarks and things of that nature, setting up a business, But and then I joined the company, started selling products online, and it's been some pretty solid growth since then.
So many good things there. Yeah, scientists want to stay in the lab and you can just handle everything else, right?
Yeah.
So, let's dig into a little bit what you just touched on in the terms of you are an avid supplement taker. As a holistic nutritionist, and I know in some of the podcasts I spoke about, your founders also speak to this, but the best way to get vitamins and nutrients and everything that your body needs is through whole food sources because of the sequence of events that transpire in your body and the way that your body absorbs, synthetic versus natural vitamins and nutrients. So talk to me a little bit about that because I'm always hesitant to suggest someone take a supplement unless they have, a malabsorption problem or they're extremely deficient and they can't get it through their diet. Talk to me about your journey with supplements and why you support Layer Origin. What makes them so special
Mhm.
that you are not only an advocate, but you work for them to blow up their business more so?
Yeah, fantastic question. Yeah, and I wouldn't have taken, this role with Layer Origin, and they, have treated me, the company has treated me incredibly well, and essentially I'm a become a co-founder of the company and director of marketing. And so I wouldn't have taken this though if it was something that I didn't personally believe in, and that's easy for someone to say, but I actually have a pretty high bar for BS because I was an investigative news reporter, so I was sniffing out scams and questioning people. And I'm that guy who was chasing people down the street with a microphone, and I had the research to back things up that I was chasing them about and proof that they had wronged people, and the attorney general's office was investigating them. So anyway, point being that I really hate, fake things and things that are not
Mm.
authentic and that are just BS and just a facade. So I would not have joined Layer Origin if that was the case. But that being said, yeah, so supplements, I mean, that's definitely part of our ethos is that my partner, he really is actually intent on launching this sort of campaign that says like, do not take supplements, basically titling some blog posts that and doing some things of that nature because obviously we sell supplements, but yeah, the truth is that you do want to be getting nutrients and different things from whole food sources, for absorption reasons. That is the best way to do it. And some people do not need supplements, and there's actually, there's that great chart that came out a few years ago that's kind of like the axis of which supplements basically do nothing for you or do not have actual any research behind them, and which ones kind of have the most research and combined with the most efficacy and things of that nature. So those things should always be looked at and researched before you start taking anything. And again, you should definitely strive to be getting things through whole food sources. Now, granted, I have a lot of friends who, take something like Athletic Greens or, the podcaster Tim Ferriss, advertises for them. And even before that, recommended that product. And, he describes it as a nutritional insurance policy, meaning, you're traveling, you're on the road and you can't, get your asparagus and broccoli that day and you can't get your sulforaphane. So you're going to take Athletic Greens because it has a little bit of that in it. And hopefully cover your bases until you can get back to your typical dinner table and have the foods that you can purchase at your farmer's market or Whole Foods or whatever. And so, I mean, I think I would probably subscribe to that as well for most supplements, which is that, try to get these things through Whole Foods. Don't take it if you don't need it. There's no need to like overdose on, biotin if you have enough biotin already and your nails and hair are growing fine. And, for example, and with our product, which of course we'll delve into HMO, it's a little bit different because it's something that you're actually not gonna, no one's gonna at this point, as an adult have endemic or like innate HMO in their system, and so you would literally have to supplement it. You couldn't just magically have it or get it through a whole food source. Well, because that would be breast milk actually, which we'll get into. And so adults aren't going to have that, certainly not at scale. And so you would have to supplement with it if you wanted the benefits of it.
Okay, great. So that was a great transition into HMO. So, what is HMO? Let's just define that outright to begin.
Absolutely. So HMO is for us, the reason we're talking about it is it is the flagship ingredient of our company. We sell multiple nutritional supplements, but HMO is definitely the flagship ingredient. So what is it? Well, it's an acronym that stands for human milk oligosaccharide. And the first time I had ever heard it, because I was actually a little surprised when I joined the company, I hadn't heard much about HMO. And in fact, when I first learned about it, HMO I had heard of was like health management organization. It's like a insurance policy that you can get. I remember that from growing up in the '90s, and you had your PPO, your HMO, your HSA, whatever. And so I hadn't really heard the acronym, and I was surprised because I really keep up with a lot of supplement stuff, for better or worse. But I'm just very fascinated by it, and even before joining Layer Origin Nutrition, and the reason I hadn't heard of it is because it's very new in terms of making it into the mainstream, and it's still pretty young in its maturity cycle. As a supplement, as a household name, which we hope and think that it will grow, but that being said, it stands for human milk oligosaccharide. And so HMO, or human milk oligosaccharide, is a component found naturally in all human breast milk. And so it was basically identified by scientists in the late 1800s. And I could probably talk about this for hours, but I'll try to make it quick. Identified by scientists in the late 1800s doing research on why babies that were breastfed were having higher rates of survival, and the infant mortality rate was lower among those babies. And one of the things they looked at was, okay, the big difference here is that the babies who are living and making out of the womb better are breastfed. And so they started breaking down then, okay, what is it about the breast milk that is helping them so much? Is it the lactose? Is it the lipids? Is it the fat? Is it, what is it? Is the protein that's in the breast milk? And basically, what they ultimately uncovered was that it was this really never before discovered or uncovered component of human milk that they, at that point, I believe they called it gynolactose or something to that. Yeah, it was around. Let's see, that was like 1886. We're talking about. I have some notes in front of me just to remember the exact dates, but this was a pediatric observation that this intestinal bacteria was actually different in breastfed infants than bottle-fed infants. Okay, so the bacteria is actually different. So what is causing this? So the 1920s, right as the Great Depression was about to happen here, 1926, 1929, they called it bifidus factor in human milk. That was this factor, this X factor that was making human milk so special, helping nurture infants, build their gut lining, give them that immunity that the mother can give to the infant, to an infant. And so this was basically this. They also called it gynolactose, this additional carbohydrate element in milk. So then they start, diving in deeper as scientists do, and 1954, they're looking into this bifidus factor, this gynolactose, exploring the science of HMOs, and eventually they're able to isolate and characterize and identify over 100, close to 200 different varieties. This is now from like 1950 to year 2000. So there's different types of HMO, even within the
Mm,
category of, okay, HMOs in breast milk, but there's different types of HMO, different like very hyper specific strains of it, for lack of a better word. And so basically, they have very scientific classifications and names they've been given. Our products only have two of those 200. So one of them, for example, is called 2-fucosilactose. One is called lacto N neotetrose, or LNNT for short. 2-fucosilactose is 2-FL, 2FL. But there's 200 of them. And so scientists continue to explore this. Basically, around 2010, though, they're looking at, the people, scientists and companies, corporations are realizing, wait a minute, these are extremely powerful. Unfortunately, the only place we can get them is from human breast milk. So I don't think we're going to be able to source that at scale and deliver that to babies all over the world, because they were thinking about, what about mothers who can't breastfeed, or for whatever reason, or don't want to, or what have you, and these health benefits were too good to pass up. But how do you distribute this? And of course, there's milk
mm,
banks and things like that, but that's not at scale and not worldwide. So they started looking at ways that could they synthesize this or reproduce it somehow, some way. And the answer was yes, fortunately. And so there's a multiple ways that's been done. One of the ways is through yeast. You can take, special type of yeast, you can ferment it in a very precise way that you can only imagine how many iterations it took to figure this out. And so you take that yeast, you ferment it, you then purify it in a very specific way, and what you're left with is something that is considered bioidentical to the
mhm,
HMO that you would find in human milk. And by bioidentical, it's like on the molecular level, put it under a microscope, and it looks the same. The molecule. Is it the same? Not literally, because it doesn't have any human milk in it, but it looks the same under the microscope, has the same properties, and in turn would deliver the same benefits. So this was a
mhm,
gigantic breakthrough. We're talking millions, possibly eventually billions of dollars to be made by major formula companies for baby formula. Because if you can take the benefits of real human milk, put them in formula, that's a big deal. Of course, they had already tried to mimic it, but it just wasn't the same thing. And so, I mean, this is an experiment for your listeners, just a fun thing to do, at least to me it is. Next time you're in the grocery store, go down the baby formula aisle just for fun, right? And even if you don't have kids, and look at the formula bottles, and you'll see the major brands you may have seen before, like Similac and Enfamil. And on the label, you'll see HMO. You'll see that acronym in almost every store in America now, even in drugstores, Walgreens, Rite Aid, whatever. Um, because it was around 2017 they started putting this bioidentical HMO into baby formula. And so
mhm,
some, biohackers and health nuts out there, what have you, nutrition, people, nutrition files started hearing about this in research papers, which were increasingly common from 2010 to 2020, looking at how, real HMO in breast milk helps infants, but also how these the bioidentical HMOs helped infants, and then eventually there were tests done on how the trials and studies on how they could help adults. But so people actually started taking baby formula and drinking it, and actually like chugging it or mixing it in a protein shake with their whey protein or whatever to get the benefits of immunity, the way it can modulate, weight management, that sort of thing, your gut bacteria, and also prevent, help with lactose intolerance, help with symptoms of IBS, things like that, and also basically just alter your gut bacteria, which is the key development from this. So people were doing that, but it was, kind of expensive. It was kind of like you're buying baby formula. It's weird. It might not taste good. It has a lot of fillers in it. It's not really meant for
Mm-hmm.
adults. So a lot of, cons to this practice. And so that's kind of where the inception of our company came in, where my partner, Jason, who is one of our scientists, a former nutrition professor from University of Nebraska, PhD in food science, also worked in the private sector before for a company that in the Midwest, a major company that does the powdered egg whites that end up in protein bars like RX bar and things like that. And so he is reading these papers. I think he was actually assigned a project during his postdoctoral fellowship, and starts reading about it and says, "Wait a minute, why aren't we giving this to adults if this is so beneficial to infants?" And they were starting to pop up these research studies showing that it could help adults. So, one thing led to another, and so basically that's where our company comes in. And so we make supplements that contain bioidentical HMO that are specifically designed, tailored, and dosed for adults. And so it just comes in a powder form. It's like a white powder that's tasteless and comes with these immense benefits. And we also have it in capsule form, and we've just introduced 7 new versions of it basically. So we have a whole product line, and it's been successful so far. The biggest challenge is really word of mouth, and like you said, trying to explain what it is, because it just took me quite a mouthful there to do that. But so it's a little shocking to people, a little complex, and it's confusing because the title is human milk oligosaccharide, but our products do not contain any human milk.
That was what I was just gonna say. Like, let's just put out one sentence here and clarify it. Layer origin supplements contain no human milk. It is a component of human milk that is beneficial for babies, especially their gut lining, that you're essentially packaging. You're creating and packaging and providing to humans. So, and adults. So, anyone listening that's like, I just can't get a white powder and it's breast milk just powdered. It is not breast milk. It is just a component of breast milk that we found to be beneficial to the gut lining. Is all that correct?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly correct. And that molecular structure is what we're taking and providing. And yeah, so I mean, basically another term for these is HIMOs, which is human identical milk oligosaccharides. So, you don't need to memorize that, but HMO is human milk oligosaccharide, and then you have HIMOs, which are human identical milk oligosaccharide produced through chemical synthesis. And you're basically getting all of the benefits without having to actually consume human milk. Which, I mean, in theory, there's nothing wrong with that, but obviously that would have like a yuck factor for some people. So.
Yeah, I think most people probably are a little turned off by thinking about that, even though, it's nature. This
Right,
isn't,
right. No,
there's a lot
exactly. Yeah.
grosser things that you are eating every day in your prepackaged foods than human milk. But this is not what we're talking about. I want to get a little bit more granular. And what exactly are oligosaccharides?
Yeah. So, there's a number of different oligosaccharides. So when you talk about prebiotics, there's GOS, FOS, XOS, inulin. These are different types of prebiotic fibers. And an oligosaccharide itself is like a biochemistry term. And again, I did preface this interview by saying I'm not the scientist of the company, but obviously I've been briefed and, prepped as much as possible by our scientists with, all as much of their knowledge as possible. But it is a carbohydrate. It's a carbohydrate whose molecules are composed of relatively small monosaccharide units. And so that doesn't really
Mhm.
help many people understand what it is. But like I said, there's a number of different types of oligosaccharides, which again, it's like the plural. It's like a monosaccharide. Oligosaccharide is a number of those together. And so GOS is galacto oligosaccharide. FOS is fructo oligosaccharide. So you can find oligosaccharides in like plants and fruits and things like that. Um, and so that's kind of where you get like the fructo. prefix. And so, ours, the type that we promote and endorse is the HMO, which is a human milk oligosaccharide, which is basically a complex sugar molecule. So
Okay.
HMO is basically a sugar. It is a
Okay.
sugar that is in breast milk, basically, is a simple way to put it.
So how is it being created at Layer Origin?
Yeah, so it starts with we have these fairies and there's a wizard. No, it's it is like that. I mean, it's a little complex. So we don't so we do. Let's see, how do I want to phrase this? We have a factory here where we are producing our products. We are bottling them, labeling them, sealing them. Everything's third party tested. So basically, the way that works is before we have a batch of products, let's say we're running 2,000 bottles off of our production line, we have to take a certain amount of those and send them to a lab where they test them for impurities, make sure they're safe, etc., and then give us the okay, give us the green light. So everything is third party lab tested. Now, in terms of how, yeah, great question. Like, so, all right, so wait, it's not from human milk, but you're calling it HMO. How do you make it, right? That's like the
Mhm.
bottom line question. And the answer is, like I was alluding to earlier, there's a few different ways. So some companies are doing a method where you take the form of yeast, that they're basically producing in a lab, and then, like I said, fermenting that and purifying it. I mean, that's the level of detail I can get into from the non-science side. Now, for us, it's different though. We're actually taking bovine milk, so just like cow's milk, and basically, when a lot of your listeners are probably obviously familiar with whey protein. So when you have whey, it's you've probably heard of like whey protein isolate.
Mhm.
Um, Basically, there's like a factor left behind from that when you're creating that we would then take and ferment and then purify, and voila, you have something that is bioidentical. You have these human identical milk oligosaccharides. Now it's like a little bit more complicated than that, right? I've dumbed it down to like three steps.
That's
This
fine for
took
us.
this took like half a century to achieve. So now our scientists, to be 100% clear, we don't want to take credit where credit is not due. We did not invent HMOs. We did not invent this process. We did not come up with it. We have invented some other things that we have patents for, but not this particular process. And so we have a supplier where we're getting our HMO powder from. But our food scientists who have dedicated their lives to food science, and consulted with nutritionists, are deciding on the formulations. Which HMOs do we want, how much of each one, and what is the proper dosage. Um, so hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, two questions that popped up in my brain while you were explaining that is first, since it is milk essentially from cows, is there any lactose problem for people who are lactose intolerant? And then second, is the quality of the milk that you're getting. Is that taken into account? The quality of the cows, if they're grass fed, they're organic, what have you, is that taken into account when sourcing your HMO powder?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know actually. That's one of the few questions that stumped me in the last few months actually. I don't know about that. I don't know if we're looking at grass fed or like RBST free and things like that. I would hope we are. However, what I will say is it becomes a little bit of a moot point, and irrelevant, because it is being like the end product is nothing like cow's milk basically. And
Mhm.
I say that because by the time you ferment it and by the time the level of purification that this goes through is just ridiculous. I mean, how filtered. I mean, it would be like taking, I I don't even know how to describe it. It'd be like taking water and filtering it 10 different times, through 10 Brita, filters, and a pure filter and this and that. And then also doing reverse osmosis on it. I mean, by the time you're done with it and then evaporating it, and it's like, okay, is that really the water you started with? Well, kind of, but not really. I mean, molecularly, sure,
Mhm.
but like it's now evaporated into the air or something. So what I mean by that is basically like, it, basically, and these answers go hand in hand because the question is, can you take this if you're lactose intolerant? Like, is there lactose still present in it, given that it's coming from cow's milk? Number one. And then also, okay, but what's the quality of that cow's milk? And the answer to both of those is actually, so number one is that yes, you can take it if you're lactose intolerant. We still advise the people check with a physician of their choice, whether it's a traditional medicine doctor, or if they have an integrative or functional or holistic or a naturopathic physician, but check with somebody who you trust about whether, they think it's safe with your diet and your background and your medical history, as most nutritional products advise you do. That said, you shouldn't take it if you're pregnant. Um, or nursing. But other than that, it's generally, it has GRAS status in the US. It's generally recognized as safe, HMO, and HIMO, which is the human identical milk oligosaccharide. And so this is a question we get a lot. We have it on the FAQ of our website. Can you take this product if you're lactose intolerant or if you have a milk allergy? The true answer is yes, but we still tell people to be careful, check with a doctor. And the reason the answer is yes is because there's only trace amounts of lactose left in this product. I mean, almost barely registerable if you test for it. Um, so it's such a negligible amount that by that point, that kind of answers both parts of the question in the sense that yes, you can take it if you're lactose intolerant because there's basically no lactose in it. We have to say there is because we don't want to lie, 0.0001, whatever. And then two, how high quality are these cows? It kind of doesn't matter in the end product because this has been filtered so much and purified so much that it's not like you're consuming a 12-ounce glass of milk where those ingredients in there, okay, it's coming from a factory farmed cow who was not grass fed and has RBST and hormones injected into it. I mean, if you're drinking a 12-ounce glass of milk every day, yeah, that could be a major problem over the course of your life. If you're having this infinitesimally small amount of like trace lactose in this powder, it's not really going to be a concern. That said, I should probably find out the answer to your actual question of the origin story of our cows. But yeah, I don't know if I explained that correctly, but in a digestible way or a way that people would put credence into. But that is our true belief that by the end result of this, it's you're kind of taking that as like the vehicle to get the HMO and to create that,
Hmm.
but you're not left with much of that actual like milk product.
No, I mean, it makes sense. You're extracting one part of the cow's milk to create your product. And then in terms of the lactose intolerance, I was assuming that it was fine because fermentation breaks down those proteins that are often hard on people's digestive systems. It's the same thing with ancient made sourdough bread. People who have a glucose intolerance or glucose even allergy can often eat sourdough because it goes through a fermentation process, which breaks down that glucose already for you. So your body doesn't have to go through the process of digesting it. And so through the fermentation process, I'm sure the same thing happens with the lactose in cow's milk, is that it's just broken down and it's already digested essentially by enzymes through fermentation. So it does not impact your body the same way.
Yeah, that's correct. And what's challenging about this is that people ask us that question, and for good reason. They're very wary of it because, like, if you spent your life and you're, lactose intolerant or you have a milk allergy, you're very concerned. You obviously always check that, and you're like, okay, so this product clearly won't work for me. It's called a human milk oligosaccharide, but unfortunately for us, it is difficult to explain. But and people have to take a little bit of a leap of faith because it feels so counterintuitive, like hearing the word milk. But ironically, there's multiple people who real customers who reach out to us and say this actually like cured or alleviated my lactose intolerance issue or my milk allergy. So I mean and people who were taking the even just baby formula were saying that the HMO is so powerful that even getting it from there, before our products existed, we're seeing that type of benefit from it. So again, I mean, we don't, make health claims like that. I mean, we don't say that. We say that HMO might not even work for everybody. I mean, I know my father tried some and said, I don't feel a difference. And I said, okay. But, then again, we have a lot of customers who leave these glowing reviews that are, honestly surprise us every day and make us feel really good about what we're doing. So, but yeah, that's the irony of it, is that a lot of people are really worried about the lactose intolerance factor. But the reality is that yes, they can safely take it. And number two, it actually could potentially reverse that that, according to many people who've taken the product.
Yeah, well, often an allergy or an intolerance is a lack of a bacterial strain. So you have to have a diverse microbiome or gut in order for that bacteria to break down those proteins. And if you are lacking that diverse gut, population, then you are going to struggle with sensitivities and intolerances and allergies. And so when you say this can reverse or cure, some people might be rolling their eyes like, yeah, okay, but truly, if you are introducing your body safely to a bacterial strain that has those properties, that can absolutely happen. So, just backing you up right there. But you said you
Hey, no,
often
I appreciate that. Yeah.
you say you often get testimonies, and I assume you've used the product. I'm going to be testing it out and sharing my reviews of it. But I am curious for you to share either scientific studies and findings you as an organization have done with HMOs, or even just your first hand experience with taking the supplement.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can do both. So I'll start with, as I kind of pull up some notes in front of me, just from the actual studies that have been done. I'll start with my anecdotal, story experience of it taking myself. So I was highly skeptical of it, even though I work for the company. Because I'm highly skeptical of pretty much everything in life. But with enough evidence and research, I totally jump on board with things, regardless of what it is. And but I have a pretty high bar to pass. So yeah, I wanted to try it, and am taking it now. Actually, I've been cycling on and off of it. That seemed to be the best for my system. Has been to not take it straight through, but stop it a little bit and then go back on it. But I took the capsules. I actually haven't taken our powder yet, which I want to take, but we're sold out of it right now. But we'll have it back soon. But anyway, I took the capsules and I'm taking the capsules, and I was actually floored because I was kind of like, hey, I mean, all of our customers are loving this, and but there, I don't, there's people who, maybe they had like really bad IBS symptoms and it fixed those, but I don't have that. So what difference am
Mm.
I going to notice really? But I actually did notice a difference within like literally 2 to 3 days. And it's a difference in things that I typically don't talk about in public. There are things, in the bathroom more so,
I love
you know,
talking about poop. You're good.
yeah, yeah, no. So I mean, if you're talking about, yeah, we'll dive into it. Buckle up. But no, so I mean, basically, from time to time, right? I think we all, no matter depending on what you're eating. So if you're eating like a really poor diet, like when I'm in my pizza phases where I'm just like screw nutrition and eating a pizza or something a lot, you might have like excess gas, or sometimes even when you're eating like you're really deep into nutrition, you're having all your broccoli and your Brussels sprouts, you also might have excess gas. So what I found with HMO was that it virtually eliminated that issue for me
Mm,
within just a few days, which I thought was good. And also, when you're talking about in the restroom, sometimes you can really identify, learn some things about your health from your bowel movements. And
mhm,
what I was noticing is, okay, now I'm going to the bathroom at the exact same time every day. Like you could like set my watch to it, which was kind of a good thing. Um, Bowel movements, or I actually hate talking about this, but I do it for the job. Bowel movements being, the really like amazingly the kind of like the longest, most like together I'd ever seen in my life. You sometimes people like you'll have like these little like nuggets, and it's like this seems unhealthy or like you're constipated. And it was
Not
the
enough
opposite of that.
water.
It was like
Yeah.
smooth, you don't even need toilet paper. It was just like incredible. And so it's almost like if you've been having a lot of fiber or something like that, but basically benefits like that is what I'm talking about. And sometimes I would have stomach discomfort, light stomach discomfort, and that was gone. Now I will say for me, those benefits were like really striking in 2 to 3 days, and they did taper off a little bit, and that's why I became someone who cycles on and off, of the product, and doesn't just stay on it. And I will say also, this was not a scientific experiment, and I was combining it with the Joel Green protocol of having apple peels, apple skins, which he swears by, and talks about that increasing your certain types of gut bacteria along with the HMO, working hand in hand. So I was doing both. So I guess a scientist might say, well, wait a minute, how do you know it's not just the apple peels? But I also kept taking the HMO, and it kept working. So Yeah, so that's just one person, which you should never base anything on what one person says, but I will say it did work pretty well for me, which I was really happy about because it gave me a lot more confidence in representing our company and everything of that nature. Not that I didn't have confidence before, but it gave me more. So there have been numerous studies done. The majority of the studies, like 85%, are on infants getting actual HMO from breast milk. I'd say about 15% of the studies are on infants and adults getting HIMO, which is human identical milk oligosaccharide. So, for example, there was a study done. So, I mean, first, I'll just kind of name drop a little bit. I mean, some of the universities who have researched HMOs are Stanford, Harvard, MIT, uh, Denmark Technical University, for what it's worth, and the university in Zurich in Germany or Switzerland. And there's also external labs who've researched it. Copenhagen University, it's big in Denmark, HMOs.
Mm.
But so yeah, there's been clinical trials done with adults, and so basically a number of them, both in Denmark, the U.S., and Sweden. And so, the gist of those, and I can send you these links for show notes or whatnot, so you have them and have proof of them. But one of them was done at my alma mater, UNC Chapel Hill, where I got my master's degree. But they uh, administered not synthetic, but HIMOs to adults who had, presented with symptoms, who said they had IBS, basically irritable
Mm.
bowel syndrome, and they gave them, I think it was 10 grams over the course of 4 weeks. And they overwhelmingly reported, drastic reduction in every single symptom category. And so that's basically, the clinical trial that I always refer to, given that it was here in the US and it was relatively recent. There's ongoing trials. There's also been trials in Denmark where they gave it to healthy adults and tracked what occurred. Um, and so it is still a relatively young product, so to speak, or young ingredient. So there's a lot more research to be done. Um, I think what helps give a lot of people the extra boost of confidence in it is that we do know, like there is like a really a wide depth of research into how the natural HMOs from breast milk have helped infants, going back for 100 years. So that's
Hmm.
very well proven, incredibly established. You could not poke a hole in that at all. In terms of the research into adults, less so, but growing, and it is existent.
Let's start drawing the picture a little bit more for the benefits of HMOs. So, from what I've gathered, the greatest benefit is the benefit it has on the gut. And we'll go towards how the gut impacts everything else afterwards. But from what has been studied, either through infants or adults, how has it been found that HMOs impact the gut and the diversity found in the gut?
Yeah, so it's a really fantastic question because at the end of the day, it's like what can this do for me?
Hmm.
And so there's kind of a scientific answer, and then there's really the more basic answer. But we'll do both. So HMOs, to jump straight into it, they can really help to increase. HMOs are a prebiotic, and so prebiotic is usually a fiber. It's a fiber that is um, basically going to feed the probiotic bacteria in the gut. And so, probiotic bacteria are different strains of, colonies of bacteria living in your gut microbiome. Of course, you know this, and most of your audience probably does. But for those who don't, and I'm not an expert on it, but from what I can say, and generally considered as good bacteria, and they need food essentially. Is like the simplistic metaphor, and so prebiotic bacteria are going to go in and be the food for the probiotic bacteria. And so with HMO, with human milk oligosaccharide specifically, you are going to be taking probiotic bacteria that exist in your gut, or that you're getting from a supplement, or preferably from whole foods that are delivering probiotics to you, or that you might just naturally have in your system, and you're going to be increasing specifically two types of bacteria in your system. One being bifidobacteria, and the other one being Akkermansia muciniphila. And so these are two types that have been researched and scientists are aware of. And bifidobacteria in studies is something that is in higher prevalency in individuals who tend to be more lean. And it's also much higher in prevalence when you're a baby. We tend to lose it as we get older. And when you get over 50, you have almost none. And so they've basically discovered and identified and targeted that bifidobacteria is really good for you, and you want to have a lot of it. And basically the same thing for Akkermansia. So it increases these, is basically what it does. And so you're like, okay, great. So I've increased these bacteria, but now what? Am I going to notice a difference? And I mean, people should notice a difference, if it's working. And basically what difference might you notice? We believe weight management, basically weight loss can occur from, having a optimized gut environment with these two types of
Mhm.
bacteria that HMOs will increase. And then also immunity, which is incredibly important. And, a lot of us take for granted, and, we're trying to load up on vitamin D or this or that. And when in reality, a lot of your, 70% of your immune system's in the gut. And, you have a gut mucus layer that is really protecting you from a lot of pathogens. And so HMOs literally have a mechanism that basically they act as a decoy and attach to pathogens and carry them away, which sounds like a little fantastical, a little whimsical. Like, sure, that's how, but I mean, that's really the way it's scientifically described in papers, is that they act as a decoy, and they can truly, there's evidence that they can fight viruses. And I mean, honestly, when I hear this, I'm like, this sounds like bullshit. This sounds way
Yeah.
too good to be true. And, again, I mean, dosage, age, what else you're eating, what else is in your gut, all of those things are going to matter, of course, right? But I mean, literally, you can go on PubMed and type in human milk oligosaccharide or HMOs and look at the research. And, it's very exciting, the potential of HMOs. But basically, what they're doing is four steps. They are powerfully modulating the microbiota. They are supporting gut barrier function. We talked about that mucus layer.
Mhm.
They are supporting the immune system and immune defense holistically in your body, but originating in the gut. And they are also supporting gut brain interactions, something I haven't talked about yet, which is that there's even evidence that HMOs can help with cognitive function. And a recent study showed with motor skills in children. So again, I mean, trust me, if I was listening to this, I'd be like, this guy is just, sure, they make you grow taller, they help, your eyesight. So that's, those last two things are a joke, but it's like the benefits of HMO are, being discovered. There's definitely a lot of them, but yeah, we talk about immune benefit, cognitive function, uh, gut health. And gut health, of course, can encompass a lot of different things
All of that. Yeah.
indirectly. But what's different about our product is that when you talk about prebiotics, they're actually all pretty good for you. They're all going to be feeding your gut bacteria. But a lot of the benefits there are indirect. They're just like kind of your general, like, yeah, I'm helping my gut health. You might get some indirect benefits, and those are good. With our product, it's actually a direct benefit. Now, some of it's indirect, but a lot of it is direct. When we talk about immune, cognitive function, those are direct benefits.
Yeah, I mean, so much of everything starts with gut health, right? I was just texting a friend and a client this morning, and she said, whenever I'm not eating well, I notice my skin breaks out, my depression kind of kicks in, I start holding on to weight a lot more. And it's all because your gut is causing an inflammatory response in your body, which throws off your hormonal balances, it throws off everything. And that gut brain connection is so strong because our happy hormones, serotonin and dopamine, are 80% are produced in our gut. And so if we have this unhealthy gut environment as well as leaky gut, where your junctions within your gut lining are loose and you have bacteria and fungi and food particles falling through, you're going to have those inflammatory responses. So doing anything you can. And as you speak, I have like all these people's faces popping up in my brain. And I'm like, oh, she should try this. He should try this. I need to send some HMOs to my mom, like all these people popping up in my brain who I want to try this, because the truth is, you're never going to know what works for you individually until you give it a try. And it does sound like there's this sounds completely credible. It's worth giving a try to see if it makes a difference in your body and in your microbiome. And so it's just really interesting. But we're almost coming up on time, which is so crazy. But I am curious if you can explain the difference between HMO and probiotics. That is something that I saw on your website. So I was hoping you could speak to that. And when I was doing my research and listening to a podcast with Joel Green, he made this really interesting statement that you can never control when the probiotic is going to essentially seed in your body. So you could actually have good bacteria growing in places it shouldn't be, which creates issues. And I had never heard that before. So I'd love for you to share any information you have about HMO versus probiotics.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic question. I previously took probiotics for years on and off prior to when I was a journalist and eating fast food sometimes when we were on the road constantly and things like that, and thought I was helping myself, and I maybe I was, but Joel Green is actually quite anti-probiotic, which I found surprising. The author of that book, The Immunity Code, he's pretty anti-probiotic. He doesn't necessarily, I mean, it's a weird thing. Like he's anti-probiotic supplementation. Obviously probiotics are natural good bacteria in our system, so he's not against that, but he's very wary of walking into Whole Foods, looking at that shelf of 200 bottles of all these different colors with 100 billion CFU or 20 billion CFU, and just throwing a dart based on what bottle you like and picking one and taking it, right, with no guidance, no advice, very little research for most people. And so that was me. I was going into Whole Foods and being like, which one of these is
At
refrigerated?
least
That seems kind of
At least you did that. My husband came home with a $10 bottle from CVS, and I was like, "Throw that out. You're not taking
yeah, right.
that."
Yeah, exactly. And so I mean, I was looking for one that was like refrigerated. I was like, that's at least the bar all clear here, and one that had a certain amount of CFU. But other than that, I really didn't know what I was doing, what I was talking about, what strains I wanted, nothing. And that's what Joel Green basically says. Like you should really do that under the consultation of someone who really knows what they're talking about, and with some level of analysis of your system. What is your diet?
Mhm.
What is your current? What are your blood tests, et cetera. And so actually, it was funny because I talked to our scientists about that here more recently. They basically said the same thing. They were like, "Yeah, to be pretty careful with that. I mean, not that it's going to like destroy your system, but you can basically, you can create problems, and like you described, and you can also amplify or exacerbate existing problems that you're literally trying to get rid of." So, okay, your question was though, what is the difference between HMO and probiotics? I mean, they're honestly two extremely different things, actually. Which is that HMO is a type of prebiotic, and prebiotics are in one camp, probiotics are in another. And probiotics, I like to think of as existing already in our gut, and with the prebiotics then swooping in to then come in afterwards, typically, and feed them and nurture them. And so again, we're hoping to, well, with HMO, it's not going to go in and feed and nurture like the wrong probiotics or random probiotics. It pretty much, from my knowledge, from our chief scientist Jason, nurtures bifidobacteria and Akkermansia muciniphila, which are the ones we want to target for these IBS symptoms. And actually, now that I have it in front of me, the bifidobacteria study is talking about its impact on necrotizing enterocolitis, with that's with like babies, and then also benefits for dealing with inflammatory bowel disease, IBS, colon regularity, etc. But
Mhm.
anyway, so I mean, basically, it's just as simple as HMO is one type of prebiotic, PRE, and then you have all the probiotics, PRO, and they're just two different things. And so the pre is going to feed the pro, and HMO is just one of those. We believe it's the best. It's like it's kind of has a paradox here because HMO is kind of the newest prebiotic out there in the world, but by the same token it's also the oldest one in the world
Oldest,
because
yeah.
it's from breast milk. So in this particular application of it for adults as a bioidentical prebiotic, HMO prebiotic, it is the newest thing in the world. It is like the newest cutting edge method of delivering prebiotics to your gut to nurture hyper specific probiotics to deliver very clear cut tangible benefits. But again, like I said, a lot of us have already had HMO, we just didn't know it. So
Yeah. It's so interesting, and I am so excited to try it. I wanna get it here already and give my review, and I think a lot of people most people should give it a go, but what does Layer Origin have coming up for the brand?
Yeah, it's an exciting time for us for sure. As I may have mentioned, we first debuted our pure H. We call it pure HMO. Prebiotic is the product name, and so we debuted the capsules in early 2020. And actually, when we happened to be mentioned on the Ben Greenfield Fitness podcast, our sales really escalated from there. We decided to come out with the powder, which offers some different benefits in terms of absorbability and purity because we don't have to put flow agents in it. So some people prefer the powder; they can mix it into their daily smoothies or coffee or whatever.
Mm.
It's basically a tasteless, powder. It's almost like, I mean, if anything, it's sweet because it is a sugar. And then we came out with a prebiotic plus probiotic, which is a little bit counter to our philosophy that probiotics can be bad, but for some people, they're just, we identify those. I think it's 10 strains that are in it very clearly, and it's 100 billion CFU, and it's a formulation that our scientist believes in. But yeah, I mean that's for people who want to combine the two and don't want to seek out probiotics through Whole Foods or through their own supplement of a different brand. And then, yeah, so the new thing is that in 2021, just actually in June last month, we debuted 7 new HMO products. Where one of them is we're combining HMO with colostrum, which a lot of people are a big fan of. Some of the same benefits you actually get from HMO, but more indirect from colostrum. But we're combining HMO and colostrum in one product. For those who don't know, colostrum is basically the pre-milk of a cow, and it's extremely beneficial, according to a lot of research. So we're combining the best of both worlds with those two products, or those two ingredients in one product. And we're also adding HMO, basically doing a lot of combinations. So HMO plus vitamin D, D3, cholecalciferol, and also HMO plus fiber, a lot of good fibers. And so, yeah,
Mm.
just a lot of different varieties for people who, basically want to customize their nutritional needs and target something specific.
That's so great. That's really exciting because so many people, especially vitamin D3, are so deficient these days. And so being able to get everything that you need from one place is really important. I know I'm a vitamin D3 advocate. Of course, you need to know if you need it because it's fat soluble and you don't want to be taking something that you don't need. But deficiencies in vitamin D3 are linked to cancer, and I had skin cancer. And so vitamin D3 is very near and dear to my heart. So I think that's great that you guys are providing so many options. But before we wrap this up, I do have 3 quick hit questions for you that are more on the personal side. Not incredibly personal, but just your own opinion about life and living a healthy lifestyle. So the first one is, what does having a clean body mean to you?
What's having a clean body mean? I mean, I think that the term like eat clean has been a little bit distorted over the years, and the definition of that has been kind of overused, and it's just become, an Instagram hashtag. But so that's like the first thing that comes to my mind for whatever reason. But obviously I get the point of, I mean, it's still a good term, and it still relates to, I think, what a lot of us want at heart, which is, something that is unadulterated, something that is very pure. And I know that when I'm eating the way I want to eat and operating at my, you know, optimal function level, I feel really good. I feel
Mm.
light, I feel lean, I feel, ready for action, light on my feet. And, I certainly don't feel like kind of more bloated or heavy. And so I think that's what it means for me, actually. Like I can distinctly feel the difference of when I'm like, really in a good flow pattern of eating for 30 days, or even a couple weeks versus when I'm not. And, it's a big difference, both, mentally from a confidence standpoint, and mental clarity, lack, less brain fog, and also from a level of just like literally, the macros that I'm ingesting, or if I'm in like a anabolic state versus a catabolic state, I feel like I can really feel that difference. So I guess that's my long-winded, nonsensical answer for that one.
No, it's good. Isn't it so funny how we know how good we feel when we're living like our most optimal way, but it's Never. You can't ever stay there forever. You always have a downfall. You always fall off the bandwagon. It's something I'm
Oh, it's
telling
so
people
true.
all the
Oh,
time. Yeah, you can't judge
yeah.
yourself for it. We all go through it. I'm a holistic, nutrition therapist, and I have bad weeks. Like it's a part of the journey. But with that, you can't create stress. Even supplementing with HMO, if you have an exorbitant amount of stress in your life, your gut health is going to um, be impacted by that. So the next question is, what are some lifestyle habits you have that you could not live without?
Hmm. Lifestyle habits I can't live without. I think one of them is it's so simple, but I have some friends that don't do this, and it blows my mind. Is I try to start the day with some water, specifically purified water. It's really important to me, and I like it cold, even though I've heard that it's better to drink at room temperature. But yeah, living on the edge, I like to drink it cold, and only about 8 ounces. I'll start with just 8 ounces, and that's like the first thing I want to do. I think you just wake up from, hopefully you're getting between 7 to 10 hours of sleep the night before, and you're parched. You've literally been fasting for the night, and to me it's very important to be in like a good mood and to just get that fluid into your system. So purified water is very important to me, and I keep harping on purified because I used to live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we were one of the American cities that had really like a lead epidemic of lead in the water. I actually had a pipe replaced going into my house for $2,000 to try to get that lead out of the system. And it wasn't just my house; it was like the whole system. There was a scandal involving a company from Paris, and it was crazy. And Detroit obviously has had its problems with lead. And even a new issue is the chemical called PFAS, which is infiltrating the water supply. And I sound like I'm paranoid and a maniac, but clean water is I think it's like a human right, and so I'm pretty passionate about that. And so anyway, this is such a crazy answer for that question, but I think starting
No,
the
it's
day with
great.
some cold purified water. It doesn't have to be too much, even 8 ounces, 10 ounces, and I kind of want to rid myself of the caffeine addiction. I still do love coffee and drink coffee all the time, probably way too much. But I kind of want to get off of caffeine. I think it's maybe not that great long term, and kind of inducing this fight or flight response in me that's not natural. And so yeah, that's something that's kind of on my to do list. I've tried a few times, and it's been interesting to experiment with that for 30 days. But yeah, things every day. I don't know. Water. I'm a big believer in strength training, and how important that is. And I've run a couple marathons, so I enjoy running as well. But I need to get back into that. So I would just say like the water and strength training. I think that like people's minds are blown sometimes whenever they just lift a little bit of weights and see like the
Mhm.
confidence it gives you. Both men and women. Or anybody, of how beneficial that can be.
Yeah. I mean, also when you're lifting weights or you're doing any kind of workout, your oxygen intake is different. And oxygen is the number one most important thing to the cells in your body. You can go days without food, you can go days without water, even longer than that. But you can't go very long without oxygen. Your body needs oxygen. So when you're engaging in those activities, it increases that. And 100% about the water, I am, if we want to call it paranoid, fine. But there's so many studies, there's so much proof that people have heavy toxicity, heavy metal toxicity in their body because of the water they're drinking. And, these things that we talked about sound so easy. Like you said, like it's too good to be true at some point during the interview. You're right. It's getting back to the basics and the foundation and staying committed to them. It's really not insanely difficult. But for some reason, we've, played into marketing ploys that fat free, sugar free, all these man made products are better for us than sticking to those foundations. And it really doesn't have to be too hard. We just need to change the way we think about it. But last question for you before we wrap it up, because I've kept you here long enough and quizzed you enough today. But are there any other brands that you love and you're supporting outside of Layer Origin?
Oh, interesting question. Yeah, I mean, I think that what they're doing over at I don't know how to pronounce it, but Olipop, is pretty cool and pretty exciting. I don't know if you've
Mm-hmm.
heard about them.
Yeah.
They basically have a prebiotic soda pop,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't tried it yet, but I'm
Oh, it's
interested to try
good.
it. And so okay, great. Yeah, so they have some flavors that sound really good. So I'm always looking for something else to drink because I don't want to drink obviously actual soda because of the sugar content, or the diet ones because of the aspartame and things like that. So,
Hmm.
I think what they're doing is interesting, for sure. And I like their branding and logos and marketing and things like that. I mean, before I started working for a supplement company, I like to, I listened to some podcasts with Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and, she would often recommend like Pure Encapsulations as a brand, and Thorn. And so, I mean, I'm kind of a big fan of brands that are like pretty simple and just like really down to the science and just down to the products, and, not a lot of hype and marketing and things of that nature. So, just things that are going to have efficacy and just be like really pure. So,
Yep.
it's kind of weird for a supplement company to recommend other supplement companies, but hey, they don't have HMO and some of the other things we have. So I think I'm safe doing that. But yeah, I mean, I'd say that's about it. I think I like the ethos of, what Patagonia does with, really supporting the planet and, leading with their values. And there's a new brand, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like Koto Paxi, which is like kind of like a
Mm.
backpack and clothing brand that has. I was just reading about them today that they source a lot of the materials for their backpacks and clothing. They basically take the remnants and scraps of other companies' products, like shirts or jackets or whatever, and then use those to make brand new products. And which you would think that sounds like horrible, but the products actually look very cool. They're like bright colors, and they even let their workers, which are in the Philippines, but they pay them a fair wage, and they let them actually create products like the colors that they want to create, taking these scraps from other products, which I thought was a great idea because there's just so much waste happening and so much water waste and product waste. And every time you create a t-shirt, it like takes whatever, like 100 gallons of water or something ridiculous. And
Hmm.
so just a cool brand. They seem to make really, I don't own anything of theirs, but they seem to make really great products. And it's named after there is a volcano in Ecuador, Cotopaxi volcano. So anyway, maybe I wasn't supposed to go to clothing brands, but hey,
No, that's great. Yeah, I actually was literally just looking for a hiking backpack and I could not bring myself to buy any because none of them were necessarily sustainable except these like $400 ones that I found and I can't afford that. So I will have to look into them. That's a great tip. And yeah, if you've never watched the documentary River Blue, it's about how we make blue jeans and I saw that like 3 years ago and I have not bought a pair of blue jeans since. Just been wearing my same ones. It'll change your life. But thank you so much. This was a really great interview. How can listeners get their hands on some product? How can they get in touch with you or the brand if they have any questions? Shout out what all those links and those social profiles are.
Yeah, sure. So, we sell all of our products on Amazon.com. So if you are, a Prime person, and want that 2-day shipping, that's a good place to go. If you want to, um, we prefer you come to our website though and check it out, and you can learn a lot more there, where we have a lot of pages dedicated to HMO. We have our blog, which is the ultimate guide to HMOs, everything you could ever want to know about them. And we also get a higher commission. Amazon takes a big portion of your profits as a small business, which is unfortunate, but hey, it's fast shipping. But yeah, so layerorigin.com, LAYERORIGIN.com. And you can actually, we have a discount code for your listeners, exclusive, which is clean body 25, 25% off discount, on any product, any HMO product, that is. We also have daily super greens, which we think are better than athletic greens. And we have some other exciting things as well. I talked about some of the patents that we have. They're actually for other products. And one thing I didn't mention is that we have 400 acres of farmland here in upstate New York, central New York, that we try to source as many ingredients as possible from. So another
Wow.
thing that we try to do to be different. But yeah, and we're pretty much Layer Origin on all social media profiles. Include Instagram, we're at layer_origin. So we hope people will check us out there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was a really great conversation, and I'm excited to try it. And I'm also excited to spam everybody in my cell phone with the links and the discount code and get them to take it too. And I'll let you know what everyone says.
All right, sounds great. Thanks so much for having us.
Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that interview. As a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional care from a doctor or otherwise qualified health professional. This podcast is provided on the understanding that it is not a replacement for medical or other health-related services. If you're looking for help in your journey, seek out a qualified practitioner. We'll see you next time.